So we try to educate and also be a community or a communal-based group. So we're really excited for what we have going on today and all of our guests as well as the locals. Ellie, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Ellie. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and I'm one of the co-organizers for PBS.
So I'm Chris. I go by he, him.
I'm Shawn Stratton. I'm from Ottawa, Canada, and I'm happy to be here. I go by he and him.
Welcome, Shawn.
I'm Moran, Gandiza, the CEO of the Plant-Based Network, and I go by he and him.
Awesome. Welcome.
Sara, she, her. I'm from Vegan Flix Studios, and I've been a vegan for about 45 years, and very much into animal rights.
Oh my goodness, that's so awesome. We're excited to hear from you.
Hi everybody, I'm Victoria Moran of Mainstreet Vegan, she, her, hers, New York City.
Wonderful, welcome.
I'm Wendy. I'm the U.S. Director of Veganuary, and I just relocated to Charlottesville, Virginia from Los Angeles a couple of months ago. And Helene, we worked together on a panel discussion in Asheville, I think, a few years back. So it's nice to see you again.
Awesome.
Hey, Wendy. Oh, that's okay. You're Farm Sanctuary, Wendy.
Do I go? Hi.
Yeah, please do.
I'm Karen Dawn of DawnWatch. I don't just introduce myself as Karen at the moment for reasons I'm sure everybody will understand. And she, her, hers. And I was late to this. I had trouble getting on. But I think it's, you want to know where I am? I'm in Santa Barbara, having recently moved from Los Angeles, like Wendy, fleeing Los Angeles. And I have been vegan for almost as long as Sadie has been alive, for 21 years, I think. And DawnWatch, which I run, is focused on getting animal issues covered by media so that people can make informed choices.
That is wonderful.
And I too am a big fan of Victoria Moran.
Is there anyone that has not gone that would like to go before we start?
Yeah, I can go. My name's Taylor Meek. I'm with Sentient Media. I'm the community manager of Sentient Media. I was kind of a last minute addition to this panel, but I'm really happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. I recently relocated from Orlando, Florida to Cincinnati, Ohio. So I moved back just in time for winter, which was horrible. I don't know why I did that. I go by she, her, hers, and I've been vegan for around 6 years, vegetarian for a little longer than that.
Glad to have you with us, Taylor.
Hey, my name is Yuri. Pronouns is he, him. I'm joining you guys from Chicago. I'm with Vegan Outreach. It's also my first winter up here. Good to be here.
Well, welcome. Wonderful. Well, I'd like to turn the time over to Shawn now, who will get us started.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chris. And it's really great to connect with everyone from all around the country, it sounds like. And so that's really awesome. We'd like to say a special welcome and thank you to the panelists for tonight, and then we'll proceed with some questions. Just a reminder to folks who joined more recently, we are recording, and so if you wish to pause your video, of course you can do so. And if folks also want to use the chat if possible to make any comments or ask any further questions, we imagine everyone will, but we just want to say it to be respectful and be kind and empathic when making comments and asking questions. So we ask everyone of that as well. So we want to give a very big thank you and welcome to all the panelists. Victoria Moran from Mainstreet Vegan Academy. Ron Gandiza, Plant-Based Network. I know folks have already introduced themselves, so I'm just going through. Wendy Matthews of Veganuary. Yuri of Vegan Outreach. Karen of DawnWatch. Shawn Stratton, Director of the International Vegan Film Fest. Sara with Vegan Flix. And Taylor with Sentient Media. And I apologize if I'm missing any of the panelists. I hope not. Okay. Thank you again, everyone. So, we'll start with the first question, and we realize that dialogue may proceed organically. If any panelist doesn't want to answer any question, that's of course fine. How we're feeling like this may work in an organizational way. If folks want to respond on the panel, you can unmute yourself, and then we'll proceed from there. And please let us know if there's any tech challenges or just any feedback throughout. So the first question is a bit more general, but we think that folks can also, get more specific, certainly as needed. But we're curious for the panelists, which aspects of veganism drive you the most or inspire you the most?
Well, I will start. I'm Victoria Moran, and I'm a fan of everybody here. And what inspires me the most is the animals. That's why I'm vegan. I would probably be interested in health and some of those things if I weren't vegan, but I might be off on some terrible tangent and might not have found this wonderful way of life. So the animals are why I'm here, but there are other things outside standard activism where I'm focusing my energy, because I really want to make vegans, and I'm just testing out different ways to see how that's going to work.
Kind of piggyback off of that, the driving factor behind my veganism has always been the animals first, but through the years, I've become much more aware of the other impacts of eating meat on the environment, our health, its impact on vulnerable communities. And basically there's just a lot of injustice within our current food system, not just for animals. So I guess you can say I'm kind of vegan for everyone and everything in a sense.
Hi. So when it comes to reasons, I think I've been all over the map a little bit. I first went vegan when I was in college and I was pursuing an environmental studies degree. So the thing that originally motivated diet change was learning about the environmental destruction caused by animal agriculture, and kind of following that interest and that passion, I took my first job in the movement, which was with Farm Sanctuary. And I worked with them for about 10 years. So spending, so much of my time around rescued animals really ignited and solidified the passion for protecting animals and the belief that they deserve lives free from harm. And lately, I find myself extremely motivated by helping people align their actions with their values. It's, there's so much anxiety that comes with going through the motions and kind of having a feeling that something's not right and it doesn't serve you and you're contributing to suffering. And you just feel bad, mentally or physically or spiritually. And I think having the resources to make choices that feel more authentic and healthy really restores a sense of well-being and connection. So my motivation is people.
Go next. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, saying that I am the founder and director of the International Vegan Film Festival, and yeah, thrilled to be here with all you awesome folks. For me, I guess when I first started veganism, it was my wife's kind of started it and suggested it, and she went cold turkey overnight, and it took about 3 months to get on board about 5 years ago. And for us at the beginning, it was all for our health. After watching some influential documentaries, and we're both kind of endurance athletes and have always been kind of health conscious. And then once I saw some documentaries and read some stuff, I just was like, wow, this is a no-brainer. If I was healthy at the beginning, but if I can even be healthier and longevity, that was the driving force at the beginning. And then obviously as the years went on, you learn about all the other massive benefits of veganism, and you fall into those as well. I love the saying, come for your health, stay for your animals. And I think that definitely relates to myself and my wife. So we're definitely here for the animals and the environment as well, but we started off with our health.
I can go next. I am joined the bandwagon of most of the fellow panelists and choose veganism for the sake of animal liberation. And health is just a sort of a lucky byproduct. When I say it's for animal liberation, it's as much as I care about animal suffering, etc. For me, it's really about this. It's a social justice issue. It's about us having enslaved other species. And I want to tell you, I choose that word carefully, knowing that I am amongst fellow vegans. It is not a word I use a lot out in the general public, because as much as I personally am passionate about animal liberation, I tend to talk in language of health and environment so that people like Shawn and his wife will find our movement inviting, and will stay to learn about the animals.
So I'll go next. This is Sara from Vegan Flix, and I am a vegan due to animals. And that was, of course, I care about everyone. So my secondary reasons would be all the other reasons for people and for the environment. But as soon as I realized that meat came from an animal, which is around the age of 8, I had to stop. Some kids who don't grow up in farmland don't realize that meat is animals, and I was one of them. So yeah, for the animals is my main thing.
And right, I'll go ahead next. I had a little bit of a roundabout pathway coming to become vegan. I'd always cared about important issues, anti-war and environmentalism. In 2008, thankfully, at a local college, I was living in Miami at the time, I got to see the movie Peaceable Kingdom. And that kind of put it right up in front of me that this was something I needed to care about too. And so I think it's because it's such an empowering thing is really what motivated me to know that I had to get into it, and that, you know, it's something that each person can do that has real change in the world. So it's been very empowering in the fact that you can help other people do that and exponentially help make change and change things for the better for animals is something that I think probably motivates me the most.
I'm Ron Gandiza. They call me Ronnie Tsunami. And the aspect that drives me the most, I went vegan in 2015 because I couldn't walk. So from a health perspective, so much inflammation and my eyes would shake every 5 minutes, every 3 to 5 minutes. So basically I had vertigo every 3 to 5 minutes. So a whole food plant-based diet healed me relatively quick, within 4 to 6 weeks. And that was my driver. But then watching Cowspiracy, learning about sustainability, and watching a number of other films, that ended up really, now my driver isn't just animals, but I would say my driver is life, right? A respect for life, respect for animals' lives, a respect for our own life in terms of health, and a respect for the planet's life. So that's the way I interpret veganism, is just a pure respect for all life.
Thanks, everyone. Those are wonderful answers. And so I want to go into the next question now. From a social justice perspective, how do you make your content as inclusive as possible?
Well, I'll start out. Sara, Vegan Flix again. I have been doing film work for a really long time. And I come from various different communities, LGBTQ. I come from a refugee family, and there's other descriptors groups. So I just came with a general awareness when I started making films a long time ago that I wanted to be as many people to be as represented on screen. Things are changing in media, thank goodness. Still not good enough, but back some decades, it was really even way worse. And so it was always a mission of mine. No, it wasn't even a mission, it just came naturally to make sure to have diversity both on screen and behind the camera and in all my content. So that's where I'm coming from.
I can jump in. So I'll say that I had a chance earlier this year to attend a diversity, equity, inclusion workshop that was held by Encompass Institute. And I don't know if anyone else here has had the chance to work with them, but they're a really fantastic organization for helping, evaluate progress and kind of where you're at, within the movement in terms of inclusion and social justice. And it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And it's really informed a lot of the internal discussions that we're having at Veganuary now within our senior team. We've taken some measures this year to make things, particularly our content, more inclusive. For example, everyone who signed up for Veganuary 2021 received a budget meal plan as part of their resources. And every meal on that meal plan comes in under $1.40 per serving, which is the average amount an American who gets SNAP benefits gets per meal. So, we've been just thinking about how to make things more socioeconomically inclusive and also aiming to use recipes with ingredients that are easier to find at places like Walmart and Aldi, as opposed to something you need to go to Whole Foods to get. And we've also recently done a review of best practices for making our online content more accessible. So we've implemented some measures around things like adding alt text to all images on web and social for the vision impaired. Obviously, these things I'm talking about are small steps, small measures, and you definitely recognize it really takes people with different ideas and strengths and interests and backgrounds to push this movement forward. And we just look forward to continuing that discussion and learning and being a part of the discourse.
Something that we've done at Mainstreet Vegan Academy, which is an adult education program. It trains and certifies vegan lifestyle coaches and educators. So we were always live and in person in New York City, and hopefully at least part of the time we will be again. We're now on Zoom, but it became very apparent last spring that it wasn't just that I needed to find out about my own inherent bias and all of these things and really grow as an individual, which had started a couple of years before, but it needed to carry over into the business, because anything that any of us does out there in the world, it's really got our name on it, even if it's not our name. So the biggest thing that we did in the visible way was to change and amend our statement of purpose, and to include in that we are an anti-racist organization. But the minute I said that, the minute that was written down, I knew that that's not just something you can say. You can say we're not racist and then just go on about your business as long as you believe you're not racist. But once you say you're anti-racist, you have to take steps, really powerful, proactive steps, and some opportunities arose over the summer to actually do that. So it takes a little bit of courage, especially for somebody who's been around for a long time and learning new things, that thing about old dogs, I think there's some truth to it. And yet it's such a wonderful, freeing experience to know that now not only am I trying to live as my best individual person, but my business also is in statement and in practice where it needs to be, and of course needing also to evolve and move forward.
I have a few bullet points here, and Wendy, it's cool that you mentioned Encompass, because I'm actually going to talk about that in just a second. But basically, the basic principles of social justice are equity, access, participation, and rights. And at Sentient Media, we put these in motion in a few ways. We report on a variety of topics based around our food system, its impact on the environment, animals, human health, vulnerable communities, specifically low-income neighborhoods where factory farms and food deserts are often found, and meat plant workers themselves who are disproportionately people of color, who are all too often exploited within our food system. And the CDC actually recently recorded race and ethnicity information for over 17,000 COVID cases in meat and poultry processing plants. And of those reported, 87% of those cases were people of color. So, you know, human and non-human animals within the food system deserve a voice in the media. And that's one of our main goals, is getting those stories out there. And we're creating inclusive content by shining a spotlight on those injustices and encouraging diverse voices to work with us, share our content on social media, and cover these important issues. Piggybacking off of what Wendy said, last year, we actually partnered with Encompass and Our Hen House to launch the Encompass Essays collection, which is written by farmed animal protection advocates who are exploring and prioritizing racial diversity, equity, and inclusion work to create a more inclusive and just vegan and animal rights movement. In one of these essays, Michelle Rojas Soto, the managing director of Encompass, stated that speciesism is made stronger by racism, which is made stronger by sexism, and on and on. So that main message of her essay was that oppressions are interconnected. So we try to make these connections as much as possible in our reporting by having those hard conversations, bringing light to these issues that have plagued not only those within our food system, but within the vegan and animal rights communities. And actually, according to research by Encompass, individuals driving the farmed animal protection movement are over 90% white at all levels of the most funded organizations. So, you know, Black, Latino, Indigenous populations are suffering from the harms of industrialized animal agriculture, yet they have little to no voice in the movement, which kind of moves me into another initiative we're exploring in 2021, which is the launch of our social media fellowship, where we'll train digital advocates from around the world and help strengthen their voices and their impact for animals, and kind of address that diversity gap in animal advocacy and the vegan movement, and help underrepresented advocates craft content on underreported issues, such as systemic racism in the food system and the overall future of our global food system, and really bring those perspectives and ideas to light. And closing out of my long-winded spiel, essentially we're stronger together. So to create inclusive content and ultimately an inclusive vegan and animal rights movement, it's really important to collaborate and evaluate underrepresented voices and work towards that one common goal, which we're all working towards, is creating a more compassionate and sustainable world for everybody. And scene.
I can jump in. So the film festival, the International Vegan Film Festival, we just finished our third year. And well, COVID has made us take a giant leap in accessibility with going virtual this past year. And so not only was it just available, the original film festival that happens in October each year wasn't just available to folks here in Ottawa, it was available worldwide. So we were very excited about that. There was a ton of learning and cramming the couple months leading up to it, but we managed to pull it off. We screened, I think it was 28 films, 28 vegan films, ranging from 2 minutes to an hour and 40 minutes from 13 different countries all over the world. So really proud about that. There's obviously lots more things we can do. This year we also added Spanish language films. So I think we had 6 Spanish language films, and we hope that'll grow in the future. We're looking at adding subtitles. So obviously the hard of hearing folks wouldn't have any trouble watching the films. So that's something we're looking to do in the future. We have an advisory board. It's 4 women and 4 men. 3 of the women are of non-white colors. And so I love that diversity there, and they're very big supporters. We have a great group of judges too that are men and women making up that panel. I see Elizabeth on the call here. Elizabeth is one of the judges for the photo contest, which is also part of the film festival. And yeah, there's always more we can do, but I love the global aspect and the fact that, you know, it's available for anyone around the world. But if people on the call have ideas on how the International Vegan Film Festival can be even more accessible, definitely open to hearing from you, and please get in touch with us and let me know. This year we had I'll tell a quick story. We had an issue about 4 days before the festival was launching. I got an email from, it was actually a vegan society in Canada, and they were telling me about some, I guess one of the stars in one of the films that we were showing was now posting derogatory and racist posts on Facebook leading up to the festival. Nothing to do with the festival. It was just kind of, it was almost like he was radicalized. And he brought it to my attention. I had no idea, and having to make a decision with that. And it was really challenging because I didn't want to censor a film based on someone's political beliefs, but where is that line between, this is really offensive and, beyond political beliefs. And fortunately, one of the directors or one of the judges in the photo contest is an ex-RCMP officer. For those who aren't aware, the RCMP, it's like the FBI here in Canada. And so I got him to help me. He did kind of a short investigation and talked to all parties. And we did end up deciding to drop the film. And the film was actually produced by PETA, and they supported that as well, which is really unfortunate. It was a great film, great story, but it was filmed, probably a year and a half ago, and things change, and we ended up dropping it. But yeah, those just tough decisions are always coming down the pipe for when you're in the media and a lot of people are involved.
Oh, I'll follow up after Shawn. Shawn and I actually co-host the Plant-Based Profits show together as well. But for the Plant-Based Network, if you're not familiar with the Plant-Based Network, we're a TV network. So we have plant-based TV shows, movies, and live events. And so with that, kind of like Hulu, but for the plant-based world. So we're a lifestyle and entertainment network. So in terms of inclusivity, we're extremely concerned about that. Because actually we have 4 tenets when we put shows together. It's got to be inclusive. It's literally the first word: inclusive, positive, compassionate, and fun. We're not necessarily an activist organization. We are lifestyle and entertainment. So in terms of pursuing mainstream, right? The veg friendly, the veg curious, not just vegans or vegetarians. Our primary audience is to bring it to the mainstream. So in regards to that, we have cooking shows, for instance, but we also have music shows. We have travel shows, health shows, family shows, kids shows, wide variety, sitcoms, game shows. So it is a TV network where the inclusivity piece of it, we have hosts that are from all different ethnicities. I'm from Hawaii. I live in North Carolina. But we have African Americans, we have LGBTQ, we have, we have Asians. We have a wide variety of TV hosts and age groups on top of that. So, we're not targeting one specific audience because, quite frankly, our audience is almost split evenly. We have, in terms of age groups, 3 age groups, from the millennials to the middle age to my age. I'm a senior, I'm a grandfather. So the senior group of it, that whole inclusivity piece in terms of seeing you represented on screen, especially when we're going for the mainstream, where we want to show them that it's not, quote, elitist to be vegan. It's not a particular demographic. It's really pretty widespread now. And quite frankly, you can just take a look at the health concerns in terms of different ethnicities having a higher, issue, right? With type 2 diabetes, for instance. We want to make that clear. And so we have to have programming. We have to consciously have programming that addresses multiple audiences out there. And so that's where we have 60 interns, for instance, 60 interns and volunteers from all walks of life, from all around the world, not just making it US centric, but having Plant-Based Network in Espanol, which we're rolling out this year, having Plant-Based Network Asia, which rolls out in February. So it's very much something. I mean, if you take a look at the conferences, a lot of it, quite frankly, you see white leaders. Not when I say white leaders, I'm talking about plant-based specialists, right? Leaders in the movement, but you don't necessarily see a wider group of panelists from all around the world in different colors. And that's one thing we wanted to address with it. Now we're seeing more of that, but I'm just saying we need to see more of that going to the mainstream, not just to preach to the choir.
Can I follow up? Okay. When I saw that question, I thought my response is probably going to be a little bit out of the ordinary in that I know most people are talking about including more people of color because historically our movement has been horrendously white. But historically our movement is unfortunately also very, very left. And when I say unfortunately, the reason it's unfortunate in my opinion is because the left is not always in power. And because about half of, say, the United States is not left. So something DawnWatch goes out of its way to do is to make sure that Republicans feel welcome. And the way I go about that is making it very clear that DawnWatch is nonpartisan. And on the DawnWatch Facebook page, I have a rule that animal advocacy is all that is spoken there. So when I post about something and then somebody comes onto the page basically to troll and say, I don't see any talk about here about the unborn children, I will very warmly respond that there are many animal advocates who care about the unborn, and I will put that person onto Matthew Scully's incredible work. Basically, any sympathy we get from the right probably comes thanks to Matthew Scully's work, and I'm happy to explain later who he is if people don't know. And sorry, I was distracted seeing a note go across the screen. And we'll then say, but on this page, we really welcome everybody who's interested in animal advocacy so we don't talk about other issues. Shall I wait while we read the... I'm sorry, I'm not used to it's like there's another conversation going on while I'm talking. If somebody on my page insults Trump, I will again say, hey, I just want to remind people that this is a nonpartisan page and that it's important for DawnWatch that everybody of all social political from all social political sides feels welcome here, and animal advocacy is spoken here. And as I mentioned, I know that's an unusual response in that our movement at the moment is very, very focused, thank heavens, finally, on making sure that all people of color feel more welcome. But I think for animals' sake, it's incredibly important that we also make sure that people on all sides of the political spectrum feel welcome.
So for vegan outreach, I'm pretty thankful for the efforts that have been made in this direction. You know, that as I mentioned earlier, just having such a justice being such a strong motivator for myself. I'm really happy that there's so many people that I work with that share that. In my experience, a lot of you are probably very familiar with stacks and mounds of leaflets that come out of vegan outreach, going to college students and at festivals everywhere. At least I want to say 3 or 4 years now, there's been a conscious effort to change sort of the look of them to have more people of color represented. There's testimonials in the pages that like we switched to more African American athletes, social justice, people from the Latino community, and slowly it's been a long process, but that's something that's been happening for several years now. And more recently, with COVID, as you guys know, like we have stepped back from our grassroots college work and focused more on sharing the transition program we have. With if you guys aren't familiar, it's 10 weeks of vegan. It's called. It's each week a person gets motivation and information how to drop one animal from their diet. So it's a progressive kind of slow transition, helping people get into it. And from beginning in the US, that's spread to now the Canada, Mexico, and with us being able to focus like more on this past year, it's now in over 21 or 22 countries in every continent. So that's one way we've been reaching out to different populations. Like if it's a 10 weeks to vegan Argentina or 10 weeks to vegan Kenya, we work with the people in the vegan activists in those countries to come up with that content, and all the recommendations come from them. So it's very inclusive for the people that it reaches coming from those communities. So that's been something that's really good. And it was the project within Vegan Outreach that I've been more involved with this past year, since the college tours were temporarily stopped, was our vegan food aid project, which though primarily kind of like a humanitarian more focus to it, as opposed to direct advocacy like we've always done. It also shows like how we've been so inclusive. The project that mainly feeds communities of migrant workers, immigrants. One of the major ones that we've been helping a lot getting free groceries to is the Navajo Nation. That's been something I've loved to see. And in my own work too, in working in the Midwest near Chicago here, I've actually been working with the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC, which through them we've been actually getting groceries and food support to Tyson, JBC employees and their families. So it's been great to see the work that we've been able to accomplish, taking this inclusive point of view to heart.
Thank you all for your wonderful answers. This is such an interesting discussion. Shawn, do you want to ask the next question?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Ellie. Yeah, everyone, we really, really appreciate your perspectives and all of the great work that's being done regarding social justice and spreading the word about veganism in a very inclusive way. We really, really appreciate that. And I apologize before, I didn't wish everyone a happy Veganuary. So my bad with that. And thank you, Wendy, in particular for all your great work, of course, with Veganuary, particularly in the US. And I was not inclusive in my geography, Shawn. It sounds like you're based currently in Canada. And I said just the nation, meaning the US. So I meant to extend to North America and to anyone who is from beyond there, of course, as well. But yeah, I want to move forward to the next question. And thanks, Ellie, for the prompt. So this one is even more specifically focused on media advocacy and raising awareness, utilizing the media. So the question is, when trying to have notice, particularly from non-vegan based media, how should animal activists and advocates pitch themselves for podcasts and other forms of media?
Maybe I'll start just because it's a nice segue from Veganuary. And I apologize for my big, highly reflective glasses, but there's a lot of screen time today, so I needed the blue light blockers. So not to be too spammy here, but my advice would truly be to use Veganuary as a hook. That's really what we're trying to create, is a moment when vegan is at the top of everyone's minds. And increasingly, January is the time of year when journalists are looking for vegan-related content. So I would say seize the momentum and use Veganuary in your pitch. We're really happy for anyone to connect their work to the Veganuary wave and to use the term as they see fit. Obviously, as long as it's connected to vegan work, and we have tools and resources to make that easy to do. Just as businesses are using Veganuary to promote their product offerings, individuals and organizations can use the campaign to amplify all of the great things they're doing in the vegan space. That's my piece.
I'm really passionate about this. I also host the Mainstreet Vegan podcast, but for years before I did this kind of thing, I was often on the other side of the media as an author. And so I learned working with publicists some of the things that work and many of the things that don't. So the very first thing I would say, if you want to get any kind of media, is understand that this podcast or whatever it is that you're pitching to does not exist to promote your product, your event, or our cause, as much as we wish that they did. What they're in business for is to have lots of listeners or viewers or readers. And so, what can you put in your pitch that would specifically give the listener something to tune in for and something to stay with? Because there's so many other things. They can just click on to some other podcast. And so, the idea is you need to let the producer or the host know that you have their listener in mind. Somebody sent me a pitch today, and this was actually a professional PR firm. I couldn't believe it. And it was a vegan company. And the publicist was just telling me that this company has a new way to market what they do, which is all fine, except to me, that's an ad. You know, if you tell me you want me to get the information out about how to help this company sell stuff, then I would say, fine, here are our ad rates. That's not a guess to me, but because I like vegan companies, you know, I worked with him and said, well, you know, we can go in through this way and we can make it more of a service to the listeners. But if I was a non-vegan podcast, it would just be like, you know, delete. That is the end of that. So I think it's really important to know that if you want to be out there in the world, in the media, you have to be entertaining, inspiring, and educating. And oh, by the way, I happen to have this product, this event, this cause.
I would definitely echo what Victoria had to say there. That was very well put. And obviously, Victoria, you've got a ton of experience with that. And yeah, and I would go back to even just stories, you know, obviously the film festival, so much of our films are outstanding stories, and everybody loves a good story. And if you're, you know, you're not pitching a product, you're pitching a story. And you're not pitching a movement, you're pitching a story. And so many people can connect with stories. And, you know, there's always that quote that says, like, they're never going to remember what you said. They're never going to remember, you know, what you looked like. They'll always remember how you made them feel. And I do a lot of professional speaking in my other kind of career as a leadership speaker. And yeah, it's the stories. And sometimes I think in veganism, we can kind of get our backs up with our facts and our stats, and we need to pelt people with these facts and stats. But as soon as they hang up, they're not going to remember it. But if you've got a good story, a lot of times they will remember that. So.
I can jump in. So last year, Sentient Media started an online series called Sentient Sessions, where we spoke with various experts in the animal rights space and beyond. One of them was called The Power of the Pitch, which featured editors and journalists who provided their insight on how to successfully pitch stories to vegan and non-vegan media outlets. And a lot of the advice that they give can also apply to pitching podcasts or really anything else. But the top 3 tips were: 1, read the room. So before submitting a pitch, it's crucial to understand what the outlet does and does not cover, so you can kind of tailor your pitch and your story to match the needs of the editors or whoever's in charge. 2, build relationships with outlets and editors and any other decision makers. And 3, flattery gets you far. So showing that you've read and appreciate the work of the editors, reporters, and outlets is a nice touch that can help get you noticed. We also had another session titled You're Published Now What?, where we spoke with web influencers about how to kind of expand outside of your bubble and reach new audiences on social media, which is another helpful resource to utilize when pitching yourself to vegan and non-vegan media outlets. And I can link both of those sessions in the chat, but for anybody else watching this, you can search Sentient Sessions on our website. You can search Sentient Sessions on YouTube, and you can find the full collection there.
For the plant-based network, in terms of, well, even just aside from the plant-based network, so part of what I've done is before is marketing. So as a coach, speaker, author, you know, you're always trying to be on podcasts and get PR. The thing I always talk about is credibility and visibility. I mean, the first thing is knowing your audience. And if you're looking for PR, you need to understand who your audience is and where that audience finds their content. So as an activist, if you're trying to work with mainstream and get them to think more about going vegan, be very specific and understand where those people are and then how they communicate or where they congregate. From there, then you can build credibility based on that, what they like, right? What is it they respect? Because they got to buy your message in essence, right? So, and you buy from who you trust. So why would they trust you? What's your credibility? Once you establish that content, right? Because let's say your audience goes on TV or it does go through podcasts or it does read magazines. What is it they read? You've got to make sure that you're building content that would appeal to that particular medium. Then from that, you build visibility. So you got to distribute, get this information out into as many channels as possible, whether it's, in our case, it's streaming TV, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, or mobile apps like iOS or Android. And then you have social media and you've got multiple social media networks. We've got digital magazines. So we're in the Amazon Kindle or Discount Mags or iScribe or GoGo in-flight magazines. Where is your audience getting the content, and then who are the media contacts for those specific channels? Once you do that, you're essentially building credibility and visibility, right? Because you're distributing, build the content that matters to that audience and to the media that has that audience. Content, build your credibility. There's a lot of ways to do that. And then increase the visibility by distributing that content through multiple channels. When you do that, credibility plus visibility equals reputation. When you have a reputation, people come to you rather than you having to go find them. Or at a minimum, when you approach someone like a media contact, your reputation precedes yourself. Or when they do a quick search on you, because what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to Google you, right? They Google you. You want to have all this content that's already out there, whether it's in blogs, you're on other people's podcasts, or your blog has been subscribed to by other blogs through RSS feeds, or if you got social media posts. There's a lot of things, or on your own website, you can do SEO and make sure that your content is really getting really what I call syndicated. But you have to build credibility and visibility, and then that reputation, it just makes it easier, is all I'm saying. When you have your credibility and visibility, as I like to say, big credibility, big visibility equals a tsunami. When you have a tsunami, you can't ignore it. And people are going to want to ride that wave, and they'll find you.
I'm going to suggest that one of the most important things you can do when pitching to a non-vegan outlet is to try to find common ground. This follows up a little bit on something that Taylor said about knowing what they cover, and you want to present. We want to present ourselves as part of society, not as some sort of fringe little corner of it, and work from a place of this is why your readers will be interested in this, not your readers should be interested in this. And I'm thinking, when I talk about finding common ground, it's funny, I'm thinking particularly right now, but the last piece I had published was about Colin Kaepernick's new Ben & Jerry's flavor, Change the World, which is a vegan flavor. And it's funny because my last answer mentioned the need to include people from the right, but that was a story which was very, very much a left story. And it was very nice to be able to make an argument on how it was perfect that Kaepernick is vegan for all the social justice reasons. But when I wrote that piece, I didn't pitch it to the National Review or even to the Middle. I pitched it to the Progressive magazine, because I thought they're the ones who are going to like this story the most. The Progressive magazine is not that animal friendly and certainly not vegan, but I thought, hey, they're going to like something about Colin Kaepernick. So I pitched it there, and the good news is they sent it out on the Tribune News Service. So it did get picked up by even more mainstream publications than the Progressive, more centrist publications. But the place to pitch it to was, I thought of an idea that was very left, and I pitched it left. The other thing I'm going to say about that is that we need to remember when we're pitching that visuals sell. A picture is worth 1,000 words and all that. And when a news media, including a newspaper, is wondering whether or not they're going to cover something, the possibility of it having a great visual makes it far more likely that you're going to get some coverage on that. Some of you may know that I have done for many, many years. This was the first year that I haven't done my annual turkey rescue. And the first time I pitched my annual turkey rescue was to the Los Angeles Times, and I went straight to a reporter who I knew was interested in animal issues. So I know another panelist said something about knowing who your reporters are. And her response when I suggested that I was thinking of bringing some turkeys into my home on Thanksgiving was, oh, the photo department are going to love that. And indeed they did. And it was a beautiful spread in the Los Angeles Times. And then the ABC News saw that in the Los Angeles Times and thought, oh, we can have turkeys being cuddled and blow dried, et cetera, on television. So in general, we want to think about what visuals can we offer that are going to appeal to the mainstream population and the mainstream media.
On mute there. My contribution for this topic will be pretty short. Most of my experience with vegan outreach is traveling to a different college each day and reaching out to students in person. And through that work, I have some media experience, but like Ron said, it was mostly because of the work we were doing that they would reach out to us to talk about it. But all I would say is what I really like is, make sure it's very important, I feel like, to focus on non-vegan media, non-vegan podcasts, non-vegan outlets. Something that I think is important to avoid is preaching to the choir. And like Taylor said, read the room, I guess. Like, know the outlet that you're reaching out to and their content. And I would say especially look to see that there's something relatable there that they might want to hear what your contribution is. If they cover things like social justice issues, if they cover environment, climate change, if they have covered any kind of animal interest stories, then I would say, especially if they're a non-vegan outlet, then that would be a really productive place to focus.
Where's Shawn?
Any other thoughts from our speakers or panelists before we move on to the next question? Great, we'll move on to our next question. What is some aspect of vegan activism that you wish all vegans would utilize or use as a strategy to employ? What is some part of vegan activism or some part of veganism that you are really passionate about that you wish all vegans would participate in?
I'd like to say one word: compassion. We all claim to be compassionate, right, for the animals, yet we'll chew someone's butt out because we are just so perturbed and upset and angry, and quite frankly, we are so upset at the world at times, and I'm there too. But to show compassion or empathy for wherever, it doesn't matter what angle, we come into. My daughter was vegan 11 years before I went vegan, and passing out leaflets at warp, tours. And when she talked to me, I was like, don't talk to me. I'm a Hawaiian. This is the way I eat. So, but she planted the seed. And that's often what we do. Some people are planting that seed pretty deep, and they're pretty active with a shovel and digging and digging a whole bunch of holes to plant a bunch of seeds. But regardless of where you are, plant the seed. But if we're going to show compassion for animals, which is what we all claim as a vegan, not health, not sustainability, but our big focus in being a vegan is for what? The animals, compassion. If we are trying to show compassion for the animals, then demonstrate it. right? Live it. Be compassionate to the people who don't understand yet. Quite frankly, the best learning, having been in education and training and education for 25 plus years, I know the best training and education is when people connect the dots themselves. When they connect the dots, so you just show them a dot, show them another dot, show them another dot, let them paint the picture. When they paint the picture, not only do they learn it, but they're so excited that they painted a picture, they want to share that information. They want to share that painting with everybody else because look what I painted. But you do it with compassion. You know, don't get me wrong. There are some channels and some activist faces that we'll see it on Facebook. We saw it on Twitter. We see it in places where, you'll be confrontational, but that's the shtick, right? It's a confrontational piece. I'm just saying at some level across every channel, there should be some level of compassion for the people we're trying to help paint the picture.
I agree with Ron. Obviously, yeah, compassion is great, and I'll piggyback on that. And I use the word being in leadership training and development for a long time. I use the word role modeling a lot, and if you role model a compassionate life, a healthy life, an environmentally friendly life, and a good quality vegan life, people are going to gravitate to you and be interested in what you're doing. And I've been a runner, a triathlete for years. And 2 years ago, I did my first 100-mile ultra marathon. And, a big part of that's kind of the progression in my training and running. But another big part of that I wanted to do is just kind of subtly say, hey, this vegan's running 100 miles. And, how many times do I get people coming up, oh, I could never be vegan. I wouldn't have the energy to do that. And then, I kind of slip in, well, I'm training about this much and I'm doing okay. So that, I have 3 small kids, 3 girls that are age 3, 7, and 9, and they're all vegan. And, they keep me honest every day as a role model. And if I'm doing good for them, I think I'm doing good for the world. And so, I think people could be the best role model they can be. But at the same time, as I say this, and you say, is there one vegan activism that I wish people would do? I think we need to take the word should out of these things and wish they could do in terms of, no, there's not really one. Like I bring up role modeling, but I think everybody's got their own talents and expertise and interests and passions, and you got to go with what's you. For me, it was an international vegan film festival. For others, it's panning out leaflets. It's others, it's bearing witness. And just do. I think all of us on this call that are vegan right now are activists by just simply our food choices. So at the end of the day, I think you need to do what speaks to your heart and get the message out that way.
I can piggyback off of what Ron and Shawn said. So yeah, I wish that people within the vegan movement would understand that in order to incite lasting change, it's about presenting facts and information in a way that isn't too offensive or accusatory in virtual or face-to-face interactions. Oftentimes within the vegan animal rights movement, you have passion, anger, frustration that can take over. And when that happens, people are more likely to either, get defensive and A, shut down and not listen at all, or B, fight with you until they're blue in the face. We've all probably been in both of those situations, neither of which are effective. So instead, I think it's really important to present factual evidence, which is much harder to refute. So, sharing sources like some of the articles and explainers on Sentient Media, for instance, or, studies from Faunalytics that are well-researched, it can be really helpful. And, you should still express your opinions about injustice and, the things you emotionally resonate with, but by backing those up with science, statistics, and facts, you can often change minds more quickly. And actually, my friend John Oberg, which some of you on this call might know John, he always says it's about winning hearts and minds, not arguments and debates, which I think are good words to live by, because ultimately it's about getting people to listen and to make a change. And that doesn't typically happen by screaming at someone or calling them names. So, even if you present all of the evidence in the world and somebody still doesn't want to change, just kind of step back, take a deep breath, come from a place of compassion, and remind yourself that, it likely took you a while. I know it took me a while to gather the information I needed to make the switch to veganism. And, everyone's journey is different. So just try to be compassionate, try to be patient. And yeah, I think we can create a better world that way.
I love how we seem very much all on the same page on this. I have a couple of book recommendations, and both of them come from somebody who I think is one of the world's great activists, who's Bruce Friedrich, who spent decades at PETA and then time at Farm Sanctuary and now heads up the Good Food Institute. The first is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was written decades and decades and decades ago, and it is one of the greatest books of all time. And I read it again a few years ago at Bruce's recommendation, and I'm so glad I did. And actually, I remembered just today that I have like a crib notes on that, based specifically for animal activism. On the DawnWatch website, there's a page called Writing. It's just dawnwatch.com/op-eds, OPEDS. And one of the op-eds on there is why advocating animal welfare advances animal rights. And it is about the idea of getting people on side before trying to take them further down the road. And that's one of the things that comes from the Dale Carnegie book. And another is just exactly what John Oberg said. We are trying to win hearts and minds. We've got to do that by getting people on board. The other book is called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. And it piggybacks beautifully on something Ron said about getting people to join the dots, because what I learned from that book is that people are far more interested in going away that they think they came to on their own, that you might plant the seeds, but they don't want to do what you tell them to do. They want to do what they think they had the great idea of doing. And there's other things like that throughout this book, but it really is one of the most important books I ever read. It's called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, and it's by a man called Robert Cialdini. And I recommend it with all my heart. And I wish every animal activist, whether they are involved in direct action, whether they're involved, whatever they're involved in, I wish they would read that book and Dale Carnegie's book. Even, and this is not, I just want to say, this idea that we need to be nice doesn't mean that we don't need to be in people's faces. And I'm a big fan of DXC and other groups that do a different type of activism than DawnWatch does. But that's the other thing I wanted to say. I'm glad is that I wish every activist would concentrate hard on speaking for animals every single opportunity they can without speaking against other people. And it can be done. It's a fine line, but we can do it.
I want to pick up on something that Henry wrote in the chat. He said there's a salesman saying win an argument and lose a sale. And I learned a lot about this from my mother. She was just an amazing salesperson, to the point that I was in a mall in Springfield, Missouri, and I was tired from shopping, and I sat down in a massaging reclining chair, and the guy came to do the sales pitch, and I said, no, I know all about these chairs. My mother used to sell them. And he said, your mother wasn't Gladys Marshall, was she? And I was like, yes, but I think she died before you were born. And he said, yes, but they still talk about her. So I remember her always saying to me, when everybody on earth who knows they want your product has it, then you can go out to the people who don't yet know that they want it. And this works so well for me in any kind of vegan outreach, because sometimes people will ask just to make conversation. Sometimes they'll really want to know. Sometimes they want an argument. And so to be very careful, I think too, not to target people. And this is something that we all want to do, because we all want our relatives, we want special friends to get this. It's like, I love you so much, but you kill animals. I mean, it's very difficult. And yet there might be a dozen people in your workplace or 50 people in your apartment complex who are all really looking for this information. And I think that when I'm out on the street, and I'm in New York City, and a lot of people are needing money, that if they're just standing there, I will give money as much as I possibly can. But if somebody comes up to me and specifically, says, give me some money, I feel very uncomfortable. I feel like I've been picked out, and it's not a safe feeling. And I think that when we pick somebody out and say, I'm going to make you vegan, if it's the last thing I do, just let them be, but be sure that every day, all of us are working with somebody, with masses of people, with individual people that are looking at or considering taking this step.
I can go ahead. There's so many great points in this discussion. I guess I would just add, in addition to compassion, something I feel is also important here is humility. Besides maybe Sadie up there, we've all gone through a lot of years eating animals and being a part of the problem and not the solution. And for me, that's something that's actually very helpful to keep in mind, so that I'm never sort of speaking at anybody from like a pedestal or something. So that's something I think is important as well. I just might also add, I think it is very important to pay attention and to make sure that the folks we're approaching, that we care for them. Make sure that we keep it conversational. I think it is very important to avoid letting things become a debate. Who's going to win? It's not going to be the animals like frequently. And I guess the other thought that I would add is that if somebody is talking to you, if they've come up to you, or however an interaction started, if they are talking about this and they're open to discussing it, you have to kind of trust that they have some interest in learning, that they have some interest in the interaction with you. And so going from that, I think it's very important to realize that like we did at some points in our lives, that person needs an ally, that person needs somebody to help them. So, with that feeling in mind and that approaching them that way, I just really think it can be so much more helpful for the people that we're relating to and trying to help get on board.
I think that, a lot of people have already kind of taken the words out of my mouth. Some brilliant points have been made that, I kind of had on my bullet point list too, but one that I'll touch on is just the idea of support. So, more generally in the way that's already been spoken about, providing a welcoming, non-judgmental and inclusive supportive space, but more literally, and I think there's a need to provide direct and tangible, ideally no-cost support to people who want to try vegan. And vegans love data, so let me give you some stats here. But we did a survey in the UK last year of people who had participated in Veganuary, and this was anyone who did it, regardless of whether or not they signed up. So a lot of people will, take the pledge for the month without realizing that there's a nonprofit behind it and never actually formally register. So among that group, 18% got through the whole month vegan, and only 8% said that they planned to stay vegan after. But within that study, only 1/3 of the people had actually registered for Veganuary. And then we did a similar study of people who had signed up and had utilized our resources and had joined the Facebook groups and had a community around it. And in that group, 69% said they successfully got through the month as a vegan, and 53% said that they wanted to stay fully vegan going forward. So I think that just makes the case that the more we can create a feeling of connection and community, especially right now when people need it more than ever before, the more likelihood of a successful behavior change. And this is kind of just coming to my mind in the moment, but kind of going on what Shawn said, I think authenticity is a good word here too. We created a video with Tabitha Brown earlier this year, and part of the reason I think people are so drawn to her is because she is speaking her truth and doing what she loves, and that passion shines through, and it just makes you want to, have something of what she has and do what she does. And I think that people can sniff out authenticity, and I think that's really key.
Thank you. These are fantastic. I'm really glad to hear all these wonderful things you guys are sharing with us. Before we move on to our next question, Sara, did you have anything you'd like to share before we move on to our next question?
I am going to join you in your next question.
Okay, no problem. Our next question, this is our last question. Which initiatives are you working on in 2021?
So since my mic is on, I'll start. And
okay.
We're going to be able to offer a new seed grant. We have a Vegan Flix seed grant where we give a small amount of money to people who are making vegan films or videos with animal rights or vegan content. And we have been able to offer that 3 times so far. We've been around for about 4 years. We weren't able to do it in 2020s, but thankfully we can do it again. We have a wonderful sponsorship from A Well-Fed World. I'm sure some of you know about that amazing organization. And so with them, we're going to be able to give out another seed grant, which I'm very excited about. And also we have, we are going to be releasing at some point at the end of the year, the beginning of 2020, but we're working on it now, a visual piece of writing, a visual manuscript, which we're really excited about with the theme of veganism, animal rights. It's going to be great. So that's exciting. We have some scripts in development. We're not going to be doing any long form media because it's been a hard time to raise budgets for us for feature film. 2020 was a hard year for all that kind of stuff. In fact, there's been very little filming of any kind in California. Things were pretty much shut down. So that's why we're going with this, the manuscript, which we're really excited about, and some short media content. So that's what's in store for Vegan Flix, and we're real excited and hope to work with whoever's interested. Give us you can email us on our site. There.
Well, I'll jump in. Many things simply continue. So for me, the Mainstreet Vegan podcast has been going every Wednesday afternoon since 2012, which is wonderful. A lot of you have been on that, and some others I would love to have. And then, of course, Mainstreet Vegan Academy. So if you are a vegan and you want to take your outreach to the next level, do check that out at mainstreetvegan.net. Click on Academy. I didn't know that it was going to translate into Zoom and keep its magnificence, and it has. So that's a very happy making thought for me. And I'm also extremely interested in veganism and spirituality. Some of you saw the film A Prayer for Compassion, and I was fortunate enough to be lead producer on that. And so 3 things are coming up in the early part of this year that have to do with veganism and spirituality that I would love to share. In March, on Meetup Day, actually March 20th, I'm teaming with Yoga is Vegan and the Integral Yoga Institute to do a day-long workshop called Yoga Goes Vegan, to just announce to the world that this is the day that yoga, which really invented ahimsa, it needs to go vegan. So that's coming up. And then in April, the Compassion Consortium will launch. And this is a spiritual home for vegans and pre-vegans who maybe have another spiritual community but feel their vegan part is not served there, or maybe they've left that entirely and want something of that nature. So February 1st, the website will go up, and there'll be more information about that and everything that I send out. And then finally in May, I'm working with Gwenna Hunter of Vegans for Black Lives Matter. And we're putting together a workshop called Veganism and the Spiritual Life, a soulful retreat, because there are a lot of vegans who want this to come together. So that's what I'm about this year. Thank you, guys.
I can jump in. In 2021, Sentient Media is rolling out our new Writers Collective, which is an online peer-led collaborative editing platform for animal advocates wishing to bring news about animals beyond the vegan echo chamber, so we call it. And we're also launching our social media fellowship, which I mentioned earlier, which is going to teach high impact advocates from all around the world how to craft journalistic content that's concise, effective, and helping them educate others on topics that are often not discussed, especially on social media, including, racism in the food system, animal exploitation's overall impact on the world around us. And also keep an eye out for additional Encompass essays, and we should have new Sentient Sessions installments for you in 2021 as well. So you can find all of that at sentientmedia.org. Thank you, guys.
I could go ahead. So at Vegan Outreach, like all of us, we're waiting for COVID to wind down before we can get busy in public again. But the transition program, the 10 weeks to vegan, that we've been growing steadily, we'll be still doing that for at least the first half of this year. Hopefully, spreading it to some more new countries. Last year, it's been growing in popularity almost 100% each year. We had, I think, 4,000 to 5,000 new signups each week. By the end of the year, about 250,000. This is really great to see. So we'll be working to expand that while we're still focusing mostly on our online work. And for myself, I'll still be focused in the Vegan Food Aid Project. It's been really great to see that through that, even though it's a primarily humanitarian purpose to it, we've been finding that so many of the people that have come to be involved in that project are also very interested to learn about veganism. So it's been awesome that we've been able to actually help spread recipes using some of our leaflets, even though not primarily with those, and in Iowa, giving supermarket tours to slaughterhouse workers and their families. These kind of things I'm looking forward to doing even more the next few months. So definitely some good things coming up.
I can go. So DawnWatch, folks here might not necessarily know what DawnWatch does, which is we encourage major media to do a better job of covering animal issues, not so much by putting stories out to the major media. I do that personally sometimes when I write pieces, but we're trying to encourage people who are already in the major media to do a better job of covering animal issues so that readers can make informed and viewers can make informed choices in line with their values. And traditionally, DawnWatch has been focused on the largest media outlets, such as the New York Times, because if you change what's in the New York Times, you change what's in lots of other papers. And one of the things we do is encourage letters to the editor. If a paper gets numerous letters on a certain topic, they're more likely to publish one of them. And the letters to the editor page is one of the most read pages of most papers. Also, even if you're not published, you're influencing an incredibly powerful person who is the letters editor of a major paper. But when DawnWatch first started, it was pretty easy just to focus on the largest outlets, and occasionally there'd be something else I might pay attention to. But now there's so much media everywhere on animals, thank heavens. We in 2021 are going to redesign our list such that while we might give an annual update for not annual, a weekly update of what's going on in the major media for everybody. We really want to start focusing on local media. So for example, making sure that if I see something going on in the Pittsburgh paper, that I might not send to my whole list, because then it would just, if the Pittsburgh paper got responses from all around the world, they would just feel that they were being targeted by an animal advocacy campaign. But I will instead send that just to the people in Pittsburgh and get them to respond to their local paper, where they are far more likely to be published. And it won't only be a matter of things being local. Also, we're going to divide our list up into specific areas. For example, something directly about food will go to the people at Veganuary rather than, and we might, if we have a story just about vivisection, we might not send it to our friends at Veganuary. So we're looking at becoming more targeted and more specific as to who gets what information from us and what they're going to respond to. That's something we're focused on this coming year.
I can hop in. If I hope I'm not cutting you off. No? Okay. I don't know if you can hear me. I think you were done. Yes, Dawn? I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I can.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so I just want to say I'm learning so much from everyone, and I'm so grateful for all the work that everybody does, and everyone is really moving the needle for people, the animals, and the planet, and it's impressive. So thank you to all of you. I think very much like Victoria, I'm keeping in 2021 exactly what I was doing in 2020, and that is a whole heck of a lot of reporting. So I have the Awesome Vegans Influencer Series, where I highlight movers and shakers who you may not think are vegan. So, you know, lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, for example. Or so I try to find people that are already in the mainstream that people can relate to. So they say, oh, well, you know, I love basketball, but I didn't know he was vegan. So now I feel inspired. So that's one series that I do. And then I have the Plant-Based Business Hour, and I have the Plant-Based Business Minute. And in the Plant-Based Business Hour, I cover in-depth interviews with CEOs and leaders, scientists, politicians, et cetera, who are really moving to change the business world to bring in more plant-based options or cellular or fermented protein. And then the Plant-Based Business Minute is really a headline show. So I feel very busy. So I'm inspired by everyone who says that they're taking on more in 2021. I already feel like, wow, it's you know, it's already 24/7, but I love what I do, so that's fine. But I'm just sort of more of the same and much more effort to the mainstream media, just trying to get as much as I can out to those folks.
Oh, by the way, Elizabeth, I love Elizabeth. I love Victoria. Actually, I love all the organizations here. I've worked with a number of them in different projects. But for the Plant-Based Network, again, we're actually only a year old, since 2019, November. We launched on World Vegan Day. But we're already the largest plant-based TV network in the world, and we want to grow that even more. More mainstream. Again, that's the target market, right? Veg curious, veg friendly. The omnivores, the reducitarians, the flexitarians to come in and learn more. So our goal is part of that. We're launching a new Plant-Based Network 2.0. We actually start the launch on one platform tomorrow. Actually, sorry, Friday. Is tomorrow Friday? I can't remember what day it is. And then we'll be, again, upgrading all of our systems across the board in the same system that ESPN uses and NBC uses and Disney uses. So much more bigger in terms of reach. We have a new magazine, the Plant-Based Spotlight, that we're going to grow even further. And that's already growing pretty rapidly. So we're going to keep expanding, get more eyeballs, get more people looking at the Plant-Based Network and learning it in a fun and entertaining way. That's kind of our angle, the fun and entertainment side. And then we also have events. So Plant-Based Events is a new division of ours. We actually have 5 divisions. We have an online learning, plantbasedlearning.com, plantbasedevents.com is our event management company. So we host events, but we've put on some events like online summits, and we take virtual Veg Fest. Helene on here does that as well. And what we do is we help organizations to take their events online because of COVID. But we've helped the Farm Animal Conference e-Summit for Animal Place. That was us. We helped Animal Place to put that together, or the Green Apple E-Summit with the Coalition for Healthy School Food. And so we're going to do more of those events in person and online. So as we can do more in-person events, some of our coordinators have put together million people marches in person in terms of cleanups and stuff like that. So again, end of the day, our initiatives are focused on getting more people to see that plant-based living can be fun and you can save a lot of lives, period. Respect for life. That's what it's all about for me.
I can keep mine pretty short because we are currently in the midst of the busiest time of the year. Veganuary is in full swing. So it's a little bit challenging to, think big picture and quite far ahead right now because a big part of planning next year's campaign is evaluating the efficacy of this year's campaign and looking at what worked and what didn't. And clearly we haven't had a chance to do that yet because we're only mid-month. So instead I'll just share the positives of this year. We already have 550,000 people signed up to take part for 2021 and the numbers are still growing. So at the end of the month, we'll report the final numbers. And we just started in the US last year and launched here. And a big part of the goal has been getting corporate out, or retailers and restaurants and brands to participate. And there's been some great momentum here. We just had a piece in Costco Connection magazine, which goes out to 15 million Costco members. They did a 2-page spread about Veganuary, and it had vegan recipes and reasons to go vegan. So that felt like a nice turning point for the US campaign. And Yelp made us their official nonprofit partner this January. So they're hosting vegan events all around the country and highlighting vegan restaurants, which is really great to see at a time when restaurants need more love than ever. We have over 100 businesses participating in the US so far. So, in the UK, Veganuary is a household name. Every major retailer and restaurant is rolling something out in January. And based on the momentum so far, I hope and predict we'll see the same kind of energy in the US in the next couple of years.
I'll go. So for the International Vegan Film Festival, which started off as a live event, is still a little bit in COVID hold mode, and the festival happens every year in October in Ottawa, and by October there's a good chance that the majority of the population will have vaccines. So it'll be hard. I'll have to make a call on that, I guess, in the midsummer, and we'll decide what happens. But I can see after doing virtual this year, I don't think we'll drop that. I think I love the fact that people in every nook and cranny in the world have access to the film festival now. And we'll keep growing on that because not everybody can obviously get to Ottawa or join our world tour. And so I see doing kind of a hybrid event. We'll probably do a live event if it's possible and safe in Ottawa, a live event, and maybe bring in some speakers and things like that. But we learned a lot with going virtual this year. One of the real highlights of the event was we had about 90% of the filmmakers do an introduction to their film and to say a little, behind the scenes, a little bits and pieces about their film, which the feedback on that was amazing. Usually myself or another MC would get up and just, read the bio or read the intro for the film and we'd play it. But hearing from the actual filmmakers and seeing their faces was great. It actually took some persuading for filmmakers to do it because they don't usually like being on the camera side of the film. They're used to being behind the cameras. But so we've learned a lot, and I think we're just going to grow the virtual. We want to get more advertising in terms of getting the word out there to non-vegans and vegan curious, and spreading the message around the world. The online event took place over a week, and so they had a week to view it. Not sure if we're going to extend that. We definitely had some feedback saying, oh, I just bought it on Thursday and now it's all over. But I kind of feel that if we have it for 2 weeks, people will wait till Friday of the 2 weeks and start watching it then. So there needs to be some kind of a deadline. So we're still growing and learning about that. We're going to add a contest for cookbooks, a cookbook contest this year. So we have the film festival. 2 years ago, we added a photo contest. It's a photo essay contest where people submit 3 to 5 photos that tell a story. And I added that photo contest a big part because I wanted, everyday mortals to be able to submit and be a part of the festival. Anybody's got a camera can take a little photo story and be a part of the festival. I even have a youth category, whereas not everybody has the skills or the finances or the equipment to do, nice films. And we also have a world tour I haven't really mentioned, and that's how I got connected with you folks at the Pittsburgh Veganist Society. And you were going to host a screening of the world tour last year. And so my grand vision for the Vegan Film Festival when I started this was to have a world tour, and that we would do screenings in theaters in cities all around the world. Every major city in the world and every small city in the world has a vegan community right now that can work with me to host a film festival. And how that works briefly is that there's a license, and so the local host would pay the licensing fee, and I basically give them a festival in a box and supply all the films, supplies the marketing material, the templates for sponsors, templates for press releases. And then that local host would book the theater, they would do the local marketing, they would sell the tickets, and then they keep the revenue. And so people have done it for fundraising for their own society. People have done it as kind of an entrepreneurial side hustle, side gig, for whatever reason. School groups have done it, colleges, things like that. So my vision is to have, hundreds and hundreds of screenings around the world every year of the film festival. And this would be a best of the best, probably about 2.5 hours. It'd be a best of the best of the film festival. So that obviously had to take a break this year with COVID. But I did get an email 2 days ago from Australia saying, hey, we want to do this in February. I was like, whoa, really? I didn't know you were opened up. So maybe we will get some more screens going in 2021, but definitely into the future, we're going to take over the world with the festival.
Wonderful. Before we turn the time over to Shawn, have all the speakers and panelists been able to say what they wanted to say?
Sorry, I should just quickly mention that Ron quickly mentioned it, that we have a fairly new podcast that's going to actually be a TV show on the Plant-Based Network coming up in the next month, called the Plant-Based Profits Show. And we kind of created it off How I Built This, the NPR podcast, the popular business podcast, where we really focus on the life story of plant-based business owners. And it's really neat. It's a long form. It's about 90 minutes long. And we start in childhood and learn who these people are, who these entrepreneurs are that have started plant-based businesses. And it's really meant to inspire current entrepreneurs, wantrepreneurs, people that think, wow, I could never do it. Look where they are. And we're sharing stories of like, hey, everybody started from scratch. Everybody started from somewhere. And so you can find that, Plant-Based Business Show, Plant-Based Profits Show. This week we had the Happy Pair on from Ireland. So you can check those out. Great guys.
Wow. Great. That is absolutely great, everyone. And everyone, all the panelists, thank you so much for sharing your meaningful experiences, perspectives, and work. We just truly, truly appreciate it. And thank you all for your time. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the questions in the chat, and panelists doing a great job with answering those questions, too. So thank you all. We're mindful of time. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, too. Would there be some time if folks in the audience to have maybe one or two more questions? Can some folks stay on a bit? Or if there's any other questions. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. The only other question I saw earlier was regarding film franchises and movies. Are there any in the mainstream, so to speak? Are there any particularly vegan-friendly ones, in addition to what we've heard about tonight already?
Well, one thing with vegan films is that in the mainstream is that aside from maybe a vegan storyline or a vegan actor involved, oftentimes, almost always, there's a lot of non-vegan aspects behind the scene. So you have the craft, the food, the costumes, the makeup. And so it's hard to, and it's billions, and that industry is just huge. The amount of food, there's a lot of food waste and tons and tons of meat. There's some changes being made, but there's a lot that goes into like a vegan film. But there are more and more vegan characters coming into things, sometimes a few positive ones. Still a lot that are joked about, and, you know, are the product of kind of, you know, ridicule. But I think there's more and more positive characters starting to creep into a lot of different, I'm talking about mainstream films and TV shows.
Thanks, Sara. That's a helpful perspective, and not always kind of, maybe not everyone's, I know myself, not always thinking about everything that goes on behind the scenes. It's a really great point.
One of my first movies that I made, it was a feature film, and it took 30 days of shooting. And when I had hired people on the crew, I was specific that there's not going to be any animal products served. No, it's vegan catering. And people said, okay, I needed everybody's okay with that, because this is 25 years ago or 20 years ago, and they were okay. Wow. But then after a little while, a few people on board got really upset, and they were like, we need meat. So there was kind of like this real tense moment so anyway, that's part of what led to Vegan Flix Studios. I just wanted to be super clear what's going to be going on.
That makes a ton of sense, and thank you for that, for sure. Wendy had asked, Sara, do you have a favorite mainstream vegan character who you feel is represented positively? Great question.
Is that to everybody, or?
No, that was just for me to you, Sara. I'm so curious. It's just not something I know anything about. It's interesting to hear you speaking, and I can't think of any vegan characters in the mainstream, so I'm just wondering if you have a favorite.
Yeah, in the mainstream, I don't know, the movies I'm not so sure about. There's some TV characters that have come on. I can't think of the name. There's a newer version of One Day at a Time, a new makeover version.
Oh, yeah.
Child on there. There's a lot of young people that are coming on, and they're respected rather than being ridiculed. I'm sorry, I can't, just on the spot, I'm not thinking of their names of the characters right now. I should have had that. I've been asked that before, and I should keep that in my notes. But there's a few TV shows now. If I think of something, I'll put it in the chat.
I can think of some older ones that were led the way. Emily Deschanel on Bones, her character was vegan for a long, long time, and I think was quite instrumental in helping veganism get accepted. And Georgia Fox's character on CSI, I can't remember, she may have been vegetarian rather than vegan, but it was very much part of the storyline. It was very well known that her character, Sara, was a real animal person who didn't eat them. And I'm trying to think of some that are on shows now, and I can't, but those two were real leaders.
There was the movie on The Year of the Dog. I think that's what it's called, with Molly Shannon. And I think folks have wondered, about the portrayal, of her character in kind of a layered, multidimensional way. But that's just someone who's coming to mind from back in the day from that film.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a bit of an old way that vegans were portrayed, and I think that's changing a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the character on the Simpsons, Lisa, the little girl.
Right. Yeah.
Gosh, it's just such an important point. I'm realizing how badly we need to sort of think of ways to push for that. We need,
I think there's more. It's so important, because documentaries are great and they're so important. And I can think of so many people who have become vegan, and you say why, and they've seen a great documentary, and they're just so important. But there's another aspect, and that's just media. I mean, that's storytelling of people's, fiction storytelling. That's what the movies is about, that kind of magic. And I find that a lot of young people, like really young people, under the age of, 14, like 8, 9, 10, 11, they like to, some of them, they're not that interested. Some of them are not interested in documentaries, some are, but they love to see characters. I mean, adults too, but I think about kids a lot, because they like to see, on TV and in the films, characters like them, if they're young vegans, or if they're not. This is a very interesting, it's very good for them to see the exposure of because they don't know many kids don't know about that. And stories have been forever, storytelling has been, has been with us forever. And so having movies and TV shows with vegan characters is really, really important. We come from it from a standard of also that there's a lot of vegan bullying in schools.
Yeah.
And I've heard of, there's been terrible things. Unfortunately, a child took his life a couple of years ago. And there's all kinds of things about, college students have to throw meat in their face and bullying, physical abuse, which I am aware of because that happened to me as a child many, many years ago. But
I'm sorry, Sara.
Yeah, so doing that, so showing vegans in derogatory ways on TV, which they still do, and making jokes of them is really not good for kids to see. And so we need supportive, along with the documentaries, we need supportive fiction to make new, to show the way for veganism.
I'm remembering now seeing an episode of Madam Secretary where it was clear that the daughter, who's quite a likable character, had gone vegan. And a couple of weeks later, it was the lead, Tia Leone's character, said something about the importance of milk and calcium. And it was really obvious that the dairy industry had gotten to them. So we still have a long, long way to go. And just to your point, I just have always said that I think Will and Grace did as much for gay rights as ACT UP did. And we really need some more attractive vegan characters in the mainstream media badly. So thanks to whoever asked that question.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great question. Great discussion. We also want to share at PBS, we have some other upcoming programming. Literally a week from today, January 21st, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, also on Zoom. We're collaborating with Peace Advocacy Network, PAN, to have a program called Veganism Within Latinx Communities. And it will be another panel discussion. We're excited for that as well. And it will include a speaker from Encompass. I know that's an organization we were talking about tonight, as well as from PAN, as well as from Factory Farming Awareness Coalition, and possibly Veggie Mijas as well. And so that's next week. Our programming is online now due to COVID, due to the pandemic. And it's open to everyone. As we shared before, we are an inclusive organization, 501c3 nonprofit. I can put in the chat our website, which lists further programming as well. Throughout actually January through April, we're collaborating with locally here in Pittsburgh. It'll still be online though, the Phipps Botanical Gardens and Conservatory to do a vegan series. And the first is coming up at the end of the month on January 27th at noon Eastern Standard Time, called Changing the Paradigm by Changing the Pantry. And that will be a focus on plant-based foods, and especially for folks who are vegan curious, veg curious, going further along that path. And we have some other programming coming up. We'll have a program the next month, February 25th, regarding veganism within BIPOC communities. And we know these topics are big, and they need and deserve more than just an hour, of course, or several hours even for tonight. But we hope for that program to also have a panel and to also have a rich discussion. We just want to say thank you so much to everyone again, particularly the panelists for your great words, your inspiring words and work. We know this takes time and energy, and it takes time and energy to be part of the panel. So we really appreciate it. I know I've learned a lot tonight, and I feel really inspired. So I wanted to thank everyone truly, and we hope to continue the dialogue and collaboration.